you this evening. Before I start, actually, I'll just share my screen for you, and I'll tell you a bit of background about myself. Now, if at any stage, obviously, I'm from the UK, based on my accent. If I speak too quickly, or there's something that you don't quite understand in terms of my description, something, please just raise your hand or just ask me to stop. Greetings, thank you, Afnan. Lovely to meet you all. I'll start the workshop, the presentation today. We can either do one or two things. Either maybe you can flag up your hand and ask a question, or at the end we can do question and answers. But whichever way you prefer, I'm more than happy to work with you guys tonight. But it's a pleasure to be with you. As I said, I'll just share my my screen with you so you can get the slide deck up. But it is a pleasure to be there. As Aymen said, I've been my background is actually health and fitness. I've been a gym instructor, a health club operator in operations, a fitness consultant, a health club manager. I have my own health club facility, my own gym as well back in the UK. So my background is very much health and fitness. My journey to Saudi Aramco came in 2008 when I joined at the time a wellbeing program, which was part of the medical services model. At the time, it was part of SAMSO, Saudi Aramco Medical Services Organization. It's now John Hopkins Aramco Healthcare, as you probably know. So since 2008, I've been very much a part of the wellbeing initiative for Aramco. Back then, we were part of very much the medical model. When Jaha took over, or when the organization shifted in 2016, our team at the time, we transferred over to Saudi Aramco proper, and we actually ended up in human resources, and we're a new strategic business unit under Management Professional Development Department. In MPDD, we're part of the employee experience team, and the last 2 years, my role within the team has been to really develop the wellbeing strategy for the Saudi Aramco company. And today I'm going to share with you, talk to you a bit about, what wellness is, what wellbeing programs, wellbeing activities, the different models that are out there as well, and then Saudi Aramco's model. And I'll share with you the sort of our sort of strategy to move forward as we try and develop a world-class wellbeing program. So again, as we go through the session, any questions, by all means raise your hand, or if you prefer, we can maybe wait to the end when we have a bit more time. But it's a pleasure to be with you, and let's kick off anyway. So the way that the slides have been arranged, so really it's about understanding organization wellbeing strategies to improve your actual workplace design. Now, obviously, in terms of your own personal your businesses or your interests or what you're involved with, maybe some of these strategies can apply to you, but by all means, reach out to me, and I can sort of explain how these models work and how maybe they can integrate into something that you're already involved with. In terms of the agenda, so we'll look at the rationale for wellbeing workplace strategy, a journey towards what we call a results-driven wellbeing, drivers for change as well, best practice in Saudi Aramco's solution design, wellbeing for the workplace environment, and also we'll look at some key recommendations, findings that we found on our journey based on best practice and as part of our research. And as you can appreciate, wellbeing in particular for organizations and employees is now top of the agenda for most organizations. Why? Because, as you can appreciate, we've come through 2 years of a pandemic. Our employees are really suffering and struggling through mental, emotional well-being issues. And so organizations really have identified or recognized the fact that they need to really support their employees more in terms of what they offer them to really help their overall well-being, but not just for the employees, but also for their families and their spouses as well. So the way we've taken our approach is to try and develop a framework and a plan for our employees, but also for their families as well. We certainly recognize that is important. So really the rationale based on that. Now, this slide here really, it shows you our sort of journey. It's widening the wellbeing and workplace environment strategy. Again, preparing for a healthier and happier workforce. Again, the old adage, a healthy employee is a more productive employee, but also is a more safe employee as well. Improved EVP, employee value proposition, enhance our reputation, and supporting what we call the ESG. So it's the environment, society, and governance as well. Now, obviously, Saudi Aramco is now a publicly traded company, so the ESG score is really quite critical, and well-being and social environmental issues are very, very high there. Increased productivity for the workplace and supporting a collaborative, more flexibility and social connection as well. So really, why is that important? So again, as I mentioned, it's the increased healthcare needs and costs of organizations' workforce. So if you think about it, it's just healthcare costs for an organization, any organization where you have medical insurance, or you're out there trying to support the health of your employees in particular, you provide these plans. Healthcare is costly, not just only for a private organization or an organization like Saudi Aramco or private companies, but also think about Saudi Arabia, and the Ministry of Health, for example, major costs for treating their citizens, for example. So it's across the board, and really it's all about having promoting health and well-being. And when we did our actual strategy, we looked at the Vision 2030, the quality of life program as well, and health and well-being for the population is really high on the agenda there. But also it's important for the increased demands and performance on the productivity of our workforce. It's amazing, in today's sort of climate as well, corporate climate in particular, it's about really, the pressures that our employees face, in terms of performance and performing well and being the best that they can be. So again, taking care of not their physical well-being, but emotional and mental well-being is really, really key. And when we look at what best practice shows, I'm trying to minimize this because I think this is it's blocking the screen out. That's better. So what best practice tells us is based on our research, is really a centralized well-being program delivery. And as we go through the session, I'll explain what that means. Having a digital well-being platform in place, and again, I'll explain what that relates to. And then is designing the workplace for well-being. So workplace design is really, really important, and also providing rewards and incentives to increase engagement and participation. What research shows is that it's just motivating the employees to go that extra mile, to make the right lifestyle choices. And you find that 20% of the population, they get it. They exercise, they eat well, they don't smoke, they take care of themselves. But 80% of the population, they need that extrinsic motivator, that sort of little nudge, that push to make them lead a much healthier lifestyle or make the right lifestyle choices. So really having rewards and incentives, although it can be quite costly, it really is necessary to really drive these initiatives. So when we look at Saudi Aramco's sort of framework, this is bringing our HR aspirations to life. Now, as I mentioned, the Wellbeing Program for Aramco is very much embedded in human resources, but there's also an argument, or you find some organizations, wellbeing is actually integrated as part of a HSSE initiative, for most organizations. That's the health, safety, security, and the environment. So you'll find that wellbeing can either sit in there, the workplace environment more, or it can sit in the HR. Most programs that will sit in HR. So again, our program really aligns to the sort of key Saudi Aramco corporate objectives of best place to work and promoting citizenship, sustainability, and also local value add-ons. That model you see in the center is really our HR strategy model, and the wellbeing piece fits in the employee experience as highlighted there. Now, when you look at our wellbeing model that we've actually developed, now I'll talk more about this model as we go through the session, but when you look at, based on our research, we looked at National Wellness Institute, CIPD, and other leading organizations that run wellbeing programs. And our model is based around the National Wellness Institute's model, and they tend to have sort of key dimensions of wellbeing, and I'll go through the National Wellness Institute one later. But our model in particular, it's taken our program 4 key distinct dimensions, and based on these dimensions, it's about building programs and activities around them. So as you can see on this model here, at the center is the employee. You then have an emotional dimension to well-being, which is actually that mental dimension to well-being, but we've rebranded it as emotional. You have the social dimension, the occupational, the physical. Around that, you have then Saudi Aramco Group through thriving work environments, and then through society through thriving communities. And as I said, I'll go through the model in a bit more detail later on as we go through the slides in particular. So when you look at the journey towards results-driven well-being, and this is what a lot of the sort of models and and programs and education and the books we'll talk to you about. This actual slide here was taken from the Chapman Institute. When you're looking at in terms of wellbeing training, for example, there are some key organizations out there that will offer that. The Chapman Institute as well, and I've actually taken a number of certifications from the Chapman Institute. You can do them through e-learning or in person, but they can take you from a coordinator, a wellbeing manager, a wellbeing director, and then a consultant as well. So I've got up to the director level with their certification program. In addition to the Chapman Institute, the National Wellness Institute have a certification program. And also there's an organization called WellCo as well, which is the Wellness Council of America. They have some great resources too. But when we look at program models, so the first one there is the feel-good well-being. This is how well-being has transitioned over the years. So the feel-good well-being, that was more aligned to a small-based organization. A small organization, they have some fun activities. There's no health risk. It's more voluntary. It's site-based. Minimum incentives. You have maybe the social engagement once a month, the activity. So it's a very, very basic model. The transition then moved more to the traditional well-being, which is more for slightly larger organizations. So it's more health focused, what we call limited healthcare management. Again, it's still voluntary, so much site-based, modest incentives as well, few spouses served, and there's weak evaluation. And then moving on to more results well-being model, and this is where we're sort of positioning our Saudi Aramco model in particular. So looking at productivity, presenteeism. I'm not sure if you're familiar with presenteeism, but in terms of a cost for organization, presenteeism is an indirect cost. That there's more research being done on that. So we know our direct costs for an organization, especially in terms of our healthcare for employees. So we have absenteeism costs, pharmaceutical medication costs, disability costs as well. These are costs that we can measure. Now, where presenteeism is, this is the lost productivity for an organization based on the poor health of the employee. And the best way to describe it is the employee is present in the workplace. So your employee comes into the workplace. So they're present there, but maybe they have an underlying health condition. Maybe they're a tobacco user. They smoke cigarettes. Maybe they suffer from migraines. Maybe they suffer from back, neck, or shoulder. So although they're in the workplace, they're present, their actual productivity is diminished due to that poor health that come in. So there's a lot of research on that, and it is a key sort of driver in terms of organizations in particular. Now, it's strong healthcare management orientated, so you're really working with your medical providers there, both site and virtual, so you have virtual platforms, major incentives. And when you look at what sort of figure you put in terms of incentive for employees, you can look between, I say, $50 to $150 per employee, and again, to really incentivize them to make the lifestyle changes. Major incentive, many spouses served, so it's not just the employees, their family as well, so you bring the family in, rigorous evaluation, and then there's obviously health and productivity management as well. So when we look at the result driven, so there's a 6-step planning process. And again, this is taken from the Chapman Institute. So step one, set up the wellness strategy, establish the infrastructure, plan your communications as well, engage with your key stakeholders, which is really important. Most of these, this is what we're working through in terms of our program. Plan a health management process, plan a group activity. But I think there's actually 4 more steps as well, and that's why there's a bit of space there. So what other steps are there? Key is obviously establishing governance. So you have a structure in place where you have governance to sort of govern the program. And this gives you legitimacy and also helps buy-in as well for the organization, especially a larger organization like Saudi Aramco, for example. Centralized program delivery. What we found in terms of our research on the Aramco model is that there's some great activities going on out there. A lot of activities very fragmented. It's the department's business lines doing their own sort of well-being piece. So it's all about trying to bring them together, which is really, really important. So you have a centralized framework as well, and also delivery. Key for success is establishing a champions network. Now, what a champions network is, you have a small wellbeing team that formulate the strategy. The champions network employees in the business lines or in your departments out there. So I don't know, again, size of some of your organizations, but it's about leveraging the departments and maybe the HR champions or HR generalists, maybe safety coordinators who can be champions. So a champion is someone in the business plan, in the workplace, who can actually help run these activities and work with you and coordinate activities for you as well. So it makes it a more efficient way of getting a centralized delivery model, and also get programs and activities into the workplace to support the employees. And the last one, I would say, step is really, again, the rewards incentives. So what we're looking at is really behavior change, changing behavior, which is not easy. It's a challenge, you know, for maybe every 10, 20 employees that you're targeting, maybe one or two will actually change their behavior. And it's not changing the behavior overnight, it's long-term behavior change. So it's a long, slow process. When they say in terms of wellbeing programs, when am I going to see the return on my investment, it can maybe take 1, 2, 3 years to actually see the actual the improvements in maybe the return on investment, for example, and improvements in health change. You know, values of healthier people, increased productivity amongst our employees. And ultimately, we're looking for the ultimate results. So economic benefits again, reduction in the health plan, sick leave costs as well, workers' compensation, disability. So these are the sort of the direct costs we can see, and then obviously presenteeism, which is the indirect cost. Other benefits is that you get that work-life balance. And that's what we find on Aramco in particular, is that there's more of a drive now for work-life balance to better support our employees, help stamina and resiliency, again, improved health as well, positive attitude. So also morale and recruitment and retention. Retention is really important. There's especially for our young employees coming into the workplace, younger employees, that they're more discerning, you know, they're more choosy and picky, you know, so your organization might be the employer of choice, but there's a lot of competition for talent now. So it's really important to look at other areas where you can offer more for the employee, and also benefits is increased engagement. So what are the real sort of drivers for change, for example? So when we look at our key drivers for change, it really is a change in demographics. As I mentioned, our millennials, again, by 2025 will make up 75% of our workforce. Generation Z are entering the workplace as well. And these are young, you know, they're ambitious employees coming in. They're very tech orientated, very environmentally aware as well. So it's about, you know, really understanding the sort of demographic makeup that you have. Looking at the increase of technology advances through wearable devices, for example, meet there into media streaming, cloud-based solutions. You know, so all these sort of things are really important in terms of your workplace design and what you offer. And again, as I mentioned, is the ongoing talent shortage that we have, you know, and also the competition for talent, and not just getting the talent in, but retaining them as well. And then, you know, how design impacts the employees, you know, design through this on focus and the mood of the employee as well. It can also affect their personal effectiveness, and also increase their personal happiness as well. When we look at financial factors as well, so it's really, if you think about it, the workplace or your office space is probably the second most biggest expense you'll have in terms of rent, maybe electricity and services and utilities. So it's basically making efficient use of the space that you have, you know, to design it in such a way that you can offer more for your employees, but in limited space as well. And also improve the employee experience. Now, our wellbeing organization and the MMPTD is now as part of the employee experience. So you're looking at employee engagement, culture of the organization, and then wellbeing as well. All sort of three really tie in there for sure. And then when we look also as some key drivers, so the workplace design trends. So again, making the workplace flexible, modular, future focused. The role of work is changing. So maybe the opportunity maybe to work from home, remote working, hot desking, for example, these things. It's activity based, blended space as well. So you have common areas, meeting rooms as well, open plan offices. But again, remember, open plan offices are not for everyone. You have more the introverted employee that require more private space. So, you know, having private lounges, for example, privacy pods, and then you have the open plan. So it's really mixed in the actual workplace design, quiet zones as well, and really design the workplace to support well-being. So especially in the workplace where our employees work, for example, is having ergonomically designed equipment. So, for example, offering employees sit to stand desks, better ergonomically designed chairs. And although this may initially cost you a bit more as an employer, you'll get the long-term benefits because employees will suffer less back, neck, and shoulder pain, for example. We have an ergonomics program where we conduct one-on-one evaluations. We have departmental walkthroughs where we look and we make recommendations and advice on that. So in terms of also designing the workplace for support well-being, looking at biophilic design. So what's that? That's more natural light in the workplace, less sort of electrical lights in there, having plants as well, making sure the environment is just well. And also is uniquely appealing to the employees as well, through workplace support and care, lifestyle at the same time, workout rooms, healthy meal options in particular, and really integrate technology, through video conferencing, wireless charging, for example, touchscreens, and then having sustainable and renewable environments at the same time. So when we're looking at best practice and our solution design in particular, as I mentioned, the National Wellness Institute, their model of well-being. I'll go through each dimension and explain what they are, but this is what we call the 6 dimensions of wellness. And a lot of well-being programs out there will have some of these key dimensions as part of their actual well-being strategy. So when we look at the model, it's this developed by a gentleman called Dr. Bill Hetler, and it was formed in 1976. He's one of the founders of the National Wellness Institute. And when we look at occupational dimension to wellness, what we mean by that is that it's obviously the workplace. Why is the workplace important? Because if you think about it, most of your lifetime is spent in the workplace. Even the World Health Organization have identified the workplace as a key area for health promotional activities. It's identified as what we call a settings approach to health and well-being. So that's why occupational well-being is in there very much so, because you've got a capture group of people where you can direct health promotional activities, again, to change behavior. The physical dimension ties in with physical activity through exercise, through eating well, through getting good sleep, quality sleep, and relaxation as well. The social dimension ties in with our interpersonal relationships. So it's our relationships with our community, our husbands, our wives, for example, our children, our family, our social network. And my general observations of society, of Saudi society and culture, is the family is really, really important, and that's such a great trait to have when you look at communities with what we call centurions, i.e., people that live to 100 years or older. So looking at countries like Sardinia in Italy and Okinawa in Japan, they have a great sense of community, the social fabric, and that is really good. There's a study called the Blue Zone Project by Dan Bwittner, but they looked at these societies and communities, and in addition to healthy lifestyles, they also found that there was that sense of community, which is important. The intellectual dimension to well-being is about further study for the education, through learning, through information that you're getting, and resources. The spiritual dimension is your values and beliefs, your sense of direction and where you're going in life. And then the emotional dimension ties very much in, is where stress is in your life as well. Now, the National Wellness Institute actually brought out a new model now. This is more of a multicultural wellness wheel. And as you see, you've got the work site, you've got the community, personal and family. It's similar to the, just showing how they all interlinked, from the personal and family, socioeconomic status, through your mind, body, spirit, for the work site, again, through inclusive workplaces, work-life balance, and again, your community, how that plays a part. So it's very much a holistic approach to your well-being. And when we look at Saudi Aramco's framework, so as we know, Saudi Aramco is very much an organization that's committed to safety, safety of our employees, so we operate safely, and are committed to the well-being of our workforce as well. So when we looked at our model, or developing our model, it really supports the individual's well-being through physical, emotional, social, and occupational dimensions. And we're looking to develop programs and activities around this model. So the emotional dimension is very much where stress lies, and it's all about building resiliency and overcoming stress. Social dimension is to do very much with your interpersonal relationships, not just at work, but also with your family and friends as well. The occupational is about building programs and activities around the workplace in particular, through career development, through financial well-being, through occupational health, for example, through safety at the same time. And the physical dimension is about having facilities, activities, recreation facilities where we can promote physical well-being. And that very much ties in with, again, the quality of life, the Vision 2030, where we're looking to really improve the physical well-being of the population and also our employees. We've actually taken this model further. So what we're looking to do is, rather than a micro lens, we want to have a look at more of a macro lens at the organization and how it all feeds into supporting our employees. So the next image is really how we're taking it a step further. We call these our well-being levers. So it's organizational capabilities to drive the well-being models. As you can see, these levers are split into 10 sort of segments. So around the outside, again, is the employee, is the company culture through the employee experience and engagement. And at the front there is through our leadership. So it's training development, programs, accountability. One of the key programs that we have at the moment is where we're looking to develop training for our chief position holders in more emotional, mental well-being, so they're better placed to support our employees and also their own personal well-being. Number two is through HR rewards, through policies, compensation, benefits, incentives, again, how we can support our employees. Number three is from personnel as well, through what HR services, and grievance sort of measures in place, again, all to support our employees. Number four is really about our communications. It's about awareness, getting information out there through campaigns and different activity. And then through technology, through application services, support and innovations. And in the workplace, is through the workplace design, environmental protection play a really key role in Aramco, because they handle the well-being of our contract workforce. So our contractors that basically are out working in the remote locations. At the workplace, again, through resources and tools. Logistics, that's really important, for transportation, scheduling, and supply. Why is that important? Because we have remote area employees that maybe work offshore. They may, for example, they may live in the Western province, but again, they have to travel long distances. So it's having that transportation structure in place, which is key, again, to their emotional well-being. And then through community, for our community services, not just on the camps around, but also social activities that we provide for our employees and their families as well. So, our camps in particular have fantastic facilities, excellent food services, home programs, social groups, social networks where they can, again, support through sporting activities and recreation. And then we have the healthcare, our healthcare partners, who really support our employees and their family. And not forgetting safety as well, through security protocols, equipment training. Why is safety important? Because there's a thing we call psychological safety. So it's feeling that in the workplace you feel safe, you feel protected as well, not just physically, but also being able to speak your mind, to be able to open up, to question things. So not to sort of take things at face value. Psychological safety is important because when you look at stress, for example, stress programs, it's very much about fixing the environment first. So it's about getting safe working environments where you feel that you can really be supportive for your employees in particular. So that in essence is our real strategy and our framework model that we've sort of built and developed anyway. Now it's about execution, from strategy to execution. So again, 3 key areas that we need to work on here. One is establishing the governance. And again, this is very much a work in progress, what we're moving towards and working towards. And sometimes I think quite often it's easier setting up a wellbeing program from scratch, where you have an organization, they don't have a wellbeing program, because you can set all these systems and procedures in place at the start. The challenge that sometimes you face is when you have an organization that the size and structure of Aramco, as I mentioned earlier, different organizations doing their own thing. So it's about pulling them together. So having that governance is really important. Also, number 2 is lining our activities around your program model. So across the organization, The champion network is really, really quite important for that. Also the human resources. And the third one is really about introducing a wellbeing platform. I'll explain a bit about the wellbeing platform. Is it the magic sort of or the golden bullet that will fix everything, having a wellbeing platform? No, but what the wellbeing platform does, it really helps you centralize and coordinate a lot of activities, and I'll go through some of the things shortly. So it's a centralized resource. You can then track employee participation, you can measure activity and also engagement. And one of the big things about wellbeing programs in particular is obviously you want to measure results. You want to see, if what you're doing is making an impact. The platform's a great tool resource to have, because one, through surveys, through questionnaires, through health risk assessments you can conduct there as well. At the same time, you can track activities as well. The only challenge that we'll be facing at the moment, and we don't have one in place, this is our sort of future plans, is obviously the cybersecurity rules and regulations that we have to comply with, confidentiality as well, especially when you're collecting data. So these are some of the challenges that you could potentially have when you're trying to bring in a wellbeing platform, and especially with the sort of in Europe, it's the GDPR rules and regulations. Saudi Arabia, they have very strict rules and regulations that we're working with law to sort of comply. So when we look at our program model and activities, so the emotional dimension, we'll go from left to right. I'll go around clockwise round so you can see. So really, the emotional dimension is what we call our Healthy Minds program. So around mental health, mental well-being, which a lot of organizations do, we want to have a softer approach because that has sort of connotations, meanings. And if you're trying to run sort of mental health programs, I would say it's much more effective if you have a softer approach, say like emotional well-being. You're more likely to get participation. There's less stigma attached to that. So it's all about stress reduction, increased resiliency, and also psychological safety. We move over to the social dimension. So that's all, we call that program our Healthy Relationships program. So again, it's creating safe and healthy environments where employees feel free and supportive. Volunteerism again, community involvement, social advocacy is key. For our occupational dimension, it's creating workplaces that really enable employees to exceed their career aspirations. And again, make Saudi Aramco our sort of employer of choice. Excuse me a second. So things like career counseling, personal finances. Now, financial well-being, some organizations have an actual separate program purely on financial well-being. So we have one in Saudi Aramco. We've been working with our finance strategy and development team at FNSD Academy. So developing a series of financial well-being workshops and webinars in particular to support mostly our sort of younger employees coming to the workplace. Because when you think about it, financial well-being, Saudi Aramco is a fantastic company and it rewards our employees well, but we can all get into financial difficulties, especially our younger employees. They come in, they're starting to get a salary. They can really get into difficulties. You take out a loan, you take out a credit card, you can really start to struggle. And why is financial well-being important? Because really it's about planning, it's about taking control, managing your finances. When you look at our relationships, remember our social well-being is an interpersonal relationship. One of the leading causes of stress and conflict in relationships, guess what, is money. It's money management, money activities in particular. The physical dimension, again, as it says, that takes, is about improving our physical well-being through healthy weight, increasing vitality and disease prevention. So it's all about building activities and programs around these key activities and dimensions is what we're really working towards at the moment. And this is very much still a work in progress. So it involves working with key stakeholders, some of those stakeholders that you saw, especially community services, for example, and our healthcare providers, career development, our social advocacy groups, IFRA, for example, working with the teams there. And then the Healthy Minds is having programs in place to support the emotional well-being of our employees through different training programs as well they have. And as you can see at the bottom there, as our wellbeing platform and application, which again, this is something as part of our plan we're working towards to try and get a wellbeing platform in place. And as I said, it's not, it's not the golden bullet that will solve everybody's problems. But what it is, if you look at our people, it's a great engagement tool. It's a one-stop shop. When you raise with your platform, it can then push resources to you to support you as well. Personalized content, you can then have a rewards and incentives built into the platform. So as employees engage more with activities, conduct HRA forms, for example, download resources, similar to an airline loyalty scheme, you can give them points. As the points build up, they can then get prizes and gifts as well. For our chief position holders, our managers, our supervisors, our team leaders, the platform that can guide your strategy, it can help with training and the professional development. It supports the employees and the teams, but most importantly for the business, it helps your corporate reputation, provides data analytics, which is really important because at the end of the day, you want to know, how the well-being of your employees are performing. Now, health risk assessment. This is an issue when you log on to your platform, you go for a series of questions, a questionnaire basically. So it's not about your physical well-being, but it could do with your stress, and you can customize the actual questions. But based on the answer to that, this will give you a well-being score for your organization. That's why it's quite important for us as a company to find what the well-being score of the company is. But not just that, but also you can drill that down to more departments and units as well. So in effect, you can still make it confidential, so you don't know who the employee is, but you can start to build up a picture of your departments or areas in your departments where you can see, what your well-being score is. You can also identify if there are any specific health risks that are more prevalent. So one department might have a high incidence of highly stressed employees. Maybe there's a high incidence of tobacco users, smokers in your organization. Why is that important? Or in that department, for example, that's important because then you can then start to target health promotion activities and interventions to try and support employees that are really struggling in those particular areas, and then to start reducing health risks. So you have, the surveys and polls, which are important there, and the on-demand dashboard. But as I said, the real challenge of this is employees feeling that Big Brother's watching them. What's the data being used for? And that is a challenge that you have. So you have to somehow get it to the employee that, this is not as a management tool where we're looking to punish you, but to look to support you and to help you. So it's all about the communication and the message that you use. Sorry about that, a bit of a technology issue there, not my headphones out. So the future aligns to best practice. It supports the centralization of wellbeing programs, is effective engagement tool, supports best place to work. And what we're looking to do is have an award, a presence award for our employees as well. So when we look at the wellbeing for the workplace environment, I'm just conscious of the time here. So this is a workplace environment model that we were initially looking at when we were developing our strategy, but I thought I'd include it here just to show you. So looking at emotional space, for our workplace. So for corporate HR, it's personalization, it's social connectivity, psychological safety, counseling and supportive networks as well. So supportive environment for our emotional well-being for our employees. You then have the physical space. So design the physical space. So biophilic design, and design, accessibility, wellness centers, ergonomics, healthy food options. Also looking at indoor air quality, thermal control, safety as well. Cycle racks, covered walking space. These are some of the things in the physical space. And then you have the future space. So the future of technology, how that assists you, through social connectivity, AI, wellbeing apps, for example, that can help you at the same time. When we look at ergonomics in particular, ergonomics is really quite crucial to support our employees. And what ergonomics is, it's really how you interact with your working environment. And a lot of people mistake ergonomics for just sitting at your desk, typing on your keyboard or sitting on your chair. But it's really whenever you're doing some physical work. So it could be a machine operator, it could be a driver, for example. If you're turning valves in pipelines, for example, whenever you engage with your workplace environment, it's about designing that for you, around you, because what tends to happen in terms of poor ergonomics, what happens there is that we end up compromising ourselves, our body position. So, for example, if you're on your PC typing away, maybe your desk is too high for you. Maybe your monitor is too low for you, and you're not adjusting it to the correct levels to make you more safer. So when we do ergonomic evaluations, in particular, mostly in the workplace where employees are working on at their PC, for example. So human factor and safety is looking at the end user, the tasks that you're performing, the equipment you're using for the tasks that you have to perform, the workspace that you're in, whether it's conducive to supporting you, and also the environment, so things like lighting, allergies in there. I'd say the one circle that's missing here is actual policies and procedures in place to support you overall. So this is sort of a framework model that we'd use to design risk assessments and how you can sort of better support your employees there, for sure. So in terms of Aramco, so our office services, they're assigned to, there's an organization called the Wellbeing Institute. So a lot of, they can do audits on your buildings, they can give you guidelines and directives in terms of how to set up your workspaces. This is an example of one of the offices here that's used to showcase. You have privacy pods, you have open plan, plants, natural light as well. You have also soundproofing partition dividers. So again, you have a bit more personal space. Ergonomic equipment solutions through sit-to-stand desks, better ergonomic design chairs. Does Aramco have all the best equipment? No, we don't. But again, we're sort of working towards there. And then you have environmental protection that will go out and monitor the actual the fields in particular to make sure that our employees are as safe as they can be, in addition to loss prevention. So when we start to look at recommendations, in terms of best practice, just check on time. Yeah, I forgot the. So key things here. So it's really establishing the governance, which is really important. Senior management buy-in is essential. You need that C-suite support because it's no good trying to promote well-being if your leaders in the organization don't really buy into themselves. For example, they're not on the work site. They're not integrating with their employees. They're not the first one in the gym. They're not seeing exercising. They're not seeing eating well. Maybe they're seeing smoking cigarettes. So a lot of it, management buy-in in terms of our C-suite executives is really, they have to get it. Because if you think about it, if you're trying to change the culture in your organization, you need their support. And also for the investment, it's not going to be cheap to get it set up and started. And it's a long-term project. It's not a quick fit-win situation. And often with C-suite and management, if they don't see the financial returns, that can really kill your program. So it's important that buy-in from management is essential, which we now have. I'm pleased to see with our senior vice presidents. They're really much engaging with well-being for the employees in particular. It's also important to engage with our key stakeholders and business lines. Keep them informed, regular communications, because that's when we can build our champions network. And remember, especially in the business lines, it helps you become more efficient at delivering your programs. Have an integrated approach to well-being, create a digital well-being platform, and then design really the workplace for well-being, and again, provide the rewards and incentives. And my last slide I'd like to leave you with is a beautiful image of the Arabian Gulf, actually, taken from Ras Tanura. So, I'd like to thank you all for your time and your engagement, and also your patience. You've been a great group. You've been patiently listening to what I've had to say. And I've left you now a few, maybe 10, 15 minutes, if you'd like to question on anything, or we can have some Q&A. I'm more than happy to answer your questions to the best of my ability, based on my experiences. If I don't know the answer, again, I will try and get back to you and support you. If anyone wants to reach out to me, you can find me on LinkedIn. On Aramco, I'm paul.burgess@aramco.com. My personal email address is small case and is pburgess1@hotmail.co.uk. But it's a pleasure. Thank you very much for Aymen for the invitation. I hope you enjoyed the session, and I look forward to answering your questions. I'll just try and, I'm not very good at I tend to use Skype, so I'm better with Skype than...
Thank you, Mr. Paul, for this very useful and informative presentation. And I hope if anyone have any question, please raise your hand, and Mr. Paul, he will answer you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the screen so I can see you all. Where are we? How to expand the thingy? Do I stop sharing?
Yeah, stop sharing.
Okay, that's great. Stop sharing. I still can't see the larger. Oh yeah, sorry. There you go. Stop sharing. Ah, fantastic. So the floor is yours. Thank you, Aymen. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time and any questions.
Let me ask you the first question. You know, according to your program, you are working in Saudi Arabia, which have too many branches, too many locations, different levels of employees. So how your happiness management or well-being management system manage all these areas and different areas of that your people available?
We have what we call, especially that's why we're embedded in HR, because in HR we have already engagement champions. So within the business lines will nominate a champion within their business line, and the employee engagement team have regular monthly meetings. We have what we call a talent council as well, where the HR business line partners, they'll meet once a quarter, maybe for 3 or 4 hours, where they present on new ideas. So it's all about engaging with these departments and stakeholders. And because as I mentioned earlier, the problem in the past, especially more on the well-being, not the employee engagement side, and having engagement surveys as well. So we've just conducted an annual employee engagement survey, and then that brings all the business partners together so we can identify, and in this year's engagement survey, we've had about a dozen well-being questions in there as well. So the idea behind that is that we can start to try and get a well-being index for our population, so we can then use that as a benchmark that we can hopefully start driving programs forward. But that's the idea behind that.
That's really great. Thank you for answering the question.
Sure, yeah.
So if anyone have any additional question, please. Okay, Mr. Ali, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much to all for organizing the nice webinar. So my question is regarding the material that have presented of the facilitator. Can we have a copy or some details of the material as reference for us in future, or for also transfer of knowledge to other? Or this is confidential material for Aramco organization?
I'm not sure if I can share the slides, but Ali, this session is recorded. So what I would...
Sorry, just by mistake, can you unmute yourself just by mistake? Mr. Paul, just unmute yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you repeat your answer?
Yeah. Again, I'm not sure about the slide deck for Aramco. But what I would say, Ali, this session is recorded. So if you're smart enough, what I would do, I would download and view the session again. I'm not sure if I can share the slides at the moment, because obviously it's but I would have to check that. But Aymen, keep in touch with Aymen, and if I can share them with Aymen, then I can maybe share them with Aymen and take it from there. No so Afnan has a question. Hi Afnan, can you?
Yeah, greetings, Mr. Paul. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, we can try to improve the well-being of the individuals, but what if that wasn't working? Like, we're not doing it. We're doing it wrong. We're doing it right. But like, individuals are not actually committed to change. Like, you get me? Like, there's nothing wrong. It's just like a waste, but like individuals are not serious about it, you know?
No, Afnan, it's such a great question. But if you think about it, behavior change, we're trying to change people's behavior. And that is a real challenge because throughout our life, we've been ingrained with unhealthy behavior. So trying to change someone's behavior overnight, it takes time, you know what I mean? And that's why I mentioned sometimes the incentives and rewards, it's like the carrot and stick to try and get you to lead healthier lives. But I totally get you. And I think that the problem with the past in terms of changing behaviors is that quite often we try and tell people what they should do. And I don't know about you, but if someone tells me to do something or to do this and do that, I generally sort of rebel against that. So in terms of behavior change in particular, it's about trying to get the person understand, that they need to make the right lifestyle changes. And if it was that easy, we would have a healthy world. Do you know what I mean? But it is a challenge, but it never really knocks me back, because for every 10 people I see, when I used to, before I got into strategy side, I was really, I used to do a lot of one-on-one wellness coaching, lifestyle coaching with people. And for every 10 I'd see, if I changed one person's behavior, that was really a motivation for me, and if it was easy, as I said, the world would be a much healthier place, but it is a challenge.
It would be much easier to just tell them to change without doing all of that. Yeah, sure.
But if it's trying to change, it's change behaviors, and a lot of our unhealthy behaviors have been set in stone when we grew up as a child. You know what I mean? Because especially smoking, where do most people learn to smoke? You generally learn to smoke as a child. You're maybe 12, 13 years old, and by the time you get into the workplace, 20, 25, 26, these are habits that are hard to break. Exactly. But it's just persevering and keeping on with it. That I would say. But great question, thanks, Afnan. I saw another hand went up. I forget who that was.
Thank you.
We have two questions from Yahya and Adil.
Okay. It's in the chat box, is it?
No, they raised their hands.
Sorry. Okay. Hi, guys. Yeah.
So, Mr. Yahya, go ahead.
Thanks, Aymen, for inviting me. Thanks, Paul, for this presentation. I'm Mohammed Khalil. I'm asking how we can develop the startups environment that take the strategy, take like those strategies in the presentation. So what's the best strategy that we can use for a startup environment? Thank you, Bob.
Is this for the company you're working with at the moment, is it?
Yes.
How large is your organization? What sort of size is it?
About 3 people right now.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we are a startup, yes.
That's pretty small. So are you looking to develop wellness amongst yourselves, or to look to develop a company to sort of bring wellness into the marketplace? Is that what you're looking at?
Yes, we are looking to be a future unicorn company, but now we are small. We have 1 year and working on the startup. So
yeah.
Yes.
Are you a tech startup, for example? Are you
yes, tech startup. Yes.
Well, if you're tech based, obviously you can look at different applications, wellbeing type platforms. There's a I think a Saudi startup as well, which called Tahun. I think it's TAHUN, which is it's a mental health app in particular, and that's really good. Yeah. If you're looking for a startup idea, I know what we're interested in is in, especially in terms of ergonomics as well, having these like pop-up avatars that come up on your desk that can, the one, remind you to get up and move, for example, can show you how to have good ergonomic setup, for example. That's something that would be quite important. And I think, what is lacking in all these sort of tech-driven applications is Arabic content, customized content. That's where Tahun, is a great mental health or emotional health app, because it's purely in Arabic. So they have guided imagery, meditation, relaxation. They have the prayers as well in Arabic to support our employees. So I think any sort of customized for this region would be really, really helpful. So I couldn't give you more specifics, but the only trouble is with well-being apps in particular, there's so much out there, so you have to try and differentiate from the rest, and make your product as unique as possible. So do a bit of market research and see what's out there and what that niche is. But I think ergonomics might be a good place for you to start, for sure.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, Adil, go ahead.
Yes. Is it clear for you to hear my voice?
Yeah, Adil, yeah, no, a bit echoey, but
Okay.
I'll try and listen, no problem.
Good. Good. Okay. So, assalamu alaikum everyone, and good evening, Mr. Paul. Actually, this is a great time to hear from you and to meet this fantastic. I see it. It was a presentation, and I believe that it was from a good team that you have, and it is not easy to lead the well-being in big organization like Aramco. So I would like to ask you, from your experience and from your perspective, if there some organization or some small institute or university that would like to start the well-being, for example, a program, organization, strategy, whatever. From your opinion, what is the basic point that they can start from?
I would say the basic point is engagement. Either do an engagement survey, find out what employees want, get a model of well-being. So what areas you're going to look at in terms of developing programs and activities. Based on your engagement survey, you can identify which employees are really interested in health and well-being. And these could form either your well-being committee, or they could be part of your champion network. So you start to grow like a seed, you know what I mean? So you grow small, you get a small team of committed people around you, individuals. You get the management buy-in as well, see what resources you can have. But quite often, for many years, in terms of when I joined in 2008, we had no resources, but we had a small group of people. We had a champions network, and it's all about communications, and then starting to promote activities within the workplace. When you start doing healthy activities in the workplace, guess what? You start to get noticed. Then management start to notice as well. And that's when you can start to build something big. Now, the person that started this program, a lady called Samantha Horseman. Now she was a dynamite, you know what I mean? She was a highly motivated individual. So you need that. She kept getting knocked down, but she kept getting up and really persevering and driving forward because she was very passionate about what she do. So you need passionate people on your team as well. And just sort of don't take no for an answer, you know. And you will get the people that are skeptical, that will push you back, saying this is all fluff, it's not going to work. But I would say now more than ever, the appetite is strong, especially amongst our management, to really start to invest in wellbeing programs. You know, we've come through the pandemic. We've had really 2-3 years. You know, look globally what's happening around the world. There's a lot of stress out there. There's a lot of tension as well. So I think now you probably get a lot more support than we did when we first started off back in 2008. I hope that's answered you. Thank you.
Yes, it is helpful. And actually, I would like to mention one more thing, and I would like to hear from you your opinion about this point. As we know, all of us, that the well-being, it is cost if you would like to implement. Some of the organizations cannot afford the cost that will be for the program itself and how we implement, what kind of tools that we can bring, and what we need, some of initiatives that we would like to implement. So from your experience or from your previous experience with the well-being, especially in Saudi Arabia, what do you think in the future related to the well-being? Do you think that it will be more important, or more organization will take care of well-being in organization or in companies? As we know, that well-being internationally, it is implemented in some international company like Google, Apple, etc. But what do you think about the well-being in Saudi Arabia?
I think the future is bright, to be honest, Adil. As I said before, I think it's widely recognized that, especially within the workplace in particular, that the health of the employee is really important. There's a lot of stress and anxiety out there. And management are starting to understand that they need to take better care of their employees, you know. So I see great things in terms of investment. And, you know, the Crown Prince as well, he's really keen to promote exercise, sport, facilities, to drive the sort of health of the population. And I think organizations, you look in Saudi Arabia, you've got STC, a lot of the banks, you've got NEOM, for example. They have really robust well-being programs. You've got SABIC as well. So organizations are starting to recognize that really it is important, it is an investment, but it's a worthwhile investment as well. So I'm actually really heartened at the fact that I think it's moving in the right direction. Remember, the wellness movement really started in the early 70s, 60s, and you can just go online now. You can do some Google searches on, check out the National Wellness Institute, and if money is an object in your organization, the quickest or the easiest way, what we tend to do was to have awareness workshops and webinars. Within your organization, there's always a meeting, there's always a communication meeting, a safety meeting, or a meeting amongst your group. And this is a great opportunity to get out there and just promote health and well-being. One of the big things that I do is that I do a lot of webinars and workshop presentations on healthy lifestyle and healthy living, on stress and resiliency, financial well-being. These are some of the sort of key topics that I present on. And a lot of the knowledge that I gained and education was doing courses in the National Wellness Institute. Look at WellCo. There's a lot of resources out there. And even just sending out mail shots or just leaflets, amongst your colleagues, it's time to promote, and it's about changing that mindset as well. So, I think, there's, I would say the future is bright for sure in terms of what we're doing.
Yes, that was great, and thank you for you, Mr. Paul, for your feedback. Again, I would like to thank you for Mr. or Dr. Aymen for this webinar.
Thank you, Adele. Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I don't know, Mr. Paul, if you could take these two people, or we could close now.
No. I'm happy. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, okay. Yeah, two more questions. Yeah.
So first, we will start with Najd. Najd.
Is Najd still with us?
Hello. Hi, are you hearing me?
Hey, Najd. Hey, how you doing? Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How are you?
Okay.
Actually, I have a consultancy firm. It's purely employee engagement consultancy services. So this topic is very interesting for me, and thank you very much for introducing it. But I'm wondering, how can I record this this session, as well as if you could send us your contact data?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think Najd, this session's been recorded by Aymen anyway, so I think.
So he will send it. He will share it with us.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. If I type in the chat, this is my contact details. If you need to reach out to me.
It will appear now on the screen.
Yeah, in the chat you can see. So you can see that.
Yeah, it's appearing. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Again, I can't promise anything, but again, if I can support in any way, I'm more than happy to.
Sure, with pleasure.
As long as I don't get fired from Aramco, okay? So.
Of course. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure, Najd. Yeah, all the best.
Bye.
Mr. Rami, go ahead.
Good evening, Paul. It's a great pleasure to engage with you twice a day. So.
Rami, hi, how you doing?
How are you? And thank you very much for this excellent presentation, as you did today as well earlier.
Thank you,
I have a question regarding the, since I want to tap on your great experience, Paul, regarding the volunteering and community work. It's for Aramco, it's very easy to find employee base around volunteering and community work because the number of employees is massive. But for those in the young organizations with 10 to 50 employees, this would be very challenging to execute. What are the best approaches to engage employees in those volunteering and community work for those small organizations?
Thank you, I appreciate it. There is an app out there. There's a Saudi-based startup. I believe they were based in Jeddah. what I'll try and do, Aymen, I'll try and find out. I have the app on my phone, but it was an app that's developed, and it's a fantastic one. You have a Google search. Now, this is it's a Saudi startup. I met the people 2 or 3 years ago. But what it is, and I was so blown away by it, because it's a social responsibility app. It's a community-based app, and what it is, when you register with the app, they will notify you what community-based projects are taking place in your area. They will also link you up or connect you with these community-based companies. Again, I haven't got my phone with me, but I forget what it was called. But honestly, I was blown away, Rami, and it's fantastic. Again, Aymen, if I find the name, I'll share it with you, and you can maybe share it with the people on this call. So that's one way. But I would say in your local community, I'm sure in your mosques as well, maybe through the Imam, I'm sure that there's charitable work that's taking place. Within your community. So I think your community is the best place to start, maybe through the schools as well of your children. But this app was super good, because again, it really connected with the with charities in the area. Now, there was also another one. If you go on the WHO, they have what we call a healthy cities program. Now, the healthy cities program. So look at WHO, healthy cities. Saudi Arabia signed up to the Healthy Cities program, and if you go on there for the Ministry of Health and that, I'm sure they will have contacts, connections, where again you can reach out to offer your services for the community. But so it's WHO, a Healthy Cities program. Saudi Arabia is very much part of that program as well, and it's all about different communities like Dammam and Qatif and Saihati and Mecca, Medina, these places where. And also Riyadh as well, where they're looking at community-based projects, to develop them. But Saudi Arabia is definitely one of the signees to this program as well. So Rami, I hope I answered. Yeah.
Yeah. My great concern. This is you partially answered it, but my greatest concern is how to incentivize those employees and make them participate. Is it like I don't know. Any ideas from your side? Yeah,
here's something that I know. I think corporate social responsibility. We're looking to do in Saudi Aramco. The way they incentivize employees, they would give them time off work. So, for example, you're working a 5-day working week. One of those working days, you could go out and you could do some charity work, but you would not lose that day. You know what I mean? So you're giving time back to an employee that goes out and does some charity work. So that's one way you can do it. Maybe once a month, if an employee goes out and they spends a day doing some charitable work, they will get that maybe an extra day off the next month. Things like this, simple things where you're encouraging them to go out, or using their skills as well to go maybe work on a project. Maybe a community-based project, a building project or something like that. So using your skill set as maybe an engineer to go and do something like that. So it also is it's responsibility of the organization to have that in place where they can support an employee to do that. Does that give you a bit more of an answer on that, Rami? As an idea?
Of course. Thank you very much, Mr. Paul and Aymen and everyone who participated in this.
Thank you, Rami. Appreciate it. Thank you, Afnan.
Hussein, just in 2 minutes. We have only 2 minutes, so just be very quick.
Hello, everyone, and thank you.
Hi, Hussein. Again.
Hi. I have 2 questions. One of the question is, how can we measure the well-being score? And the second one is there a platform where companies either share, benchmark their well-being practices?
Well, yeah, two parts of the question. So how do you get a well-being score? Again, we looked into it as part of our research, and there's not a lot of information out there in terms of benchmarking and well-being scores. So working with a platform, say you had a well-being platform in place, you can basically determine your own benchmark or well-being score. Ideally, you want to have a score of about 70%. If you can get 70% or higher in terms of your scores. And when you do your what we call your health risk assessment, so to get the benchmark, you're asking questions like, how stressed are you? Do do you have 150 minutes of that physical activity or movement throughout the week? Are you eating healthy? Do you smoke? Do you suffer from stress? So these are sort of all the questions. And based on that, you can work out what sort of your benchmark score is. And if you have an application or you're working with a platform provider, they can help you sort of identify where you should be. But generally, ideally, as an organization, you want to be about 70% in terms of improvement. As I said, from our initial engagement survey that we've undertaken, we've put 12 key questions in there. From that, we want to get a baseline that we can work from. And then based on that, you can then set your own sort of targets to sort of try and get improvements, you know, and use that as a measure. And the second part of your question was in terms of other organizations, was their benchmarking, is that right, Hussein?
Yes, I was wondering if there's like a website or a platform where Saudi companies, for example, share their well-being practices, knowledge, some kind of like a community.
Not that I'm aware of, but generally what I found in terms of our research, if you reach out to organizations, identify where they have well-being programs in particular, similar to Saudi Aramco, you know, we've been approached as well. I think within Kingdom, we are open to sharing best practice, for example. I had meetings with STC, with SABIC, for example, especially more in the HR side. So when you look at these organizations, you look at in the HR, there's generally someone that's responsible for the wellbeing program. And I found that they're very, very helpful. Some of the consultants as well, if your organization has money to burn, for example, you can bring a consultant in. Some of the key ones like BCG, as Aymen mentioned earlier, you've got Willis Towers Watson, these companies, you know, if you have the investment, again, these can get you some great benchmarking. Our strategy was developed by our own, you know, so we didn't have the pleasure of bringing a consultancy in. So we did a lot of research looking at organizations, maybe outside of Arabia as well. But there's a lot out there that you can look at and reports as well. You want to look at the key companies like Johnson & Johnson, for example, Nestle. These are leading the way. Google, as we know, Microsoft. There's some great organizations out there. In Kingdom as well, you know, STC and SABIC have really, really strong programs, and it's well worth sort of looking into what they do and what sort of models of well-being they have as well. So I hope I answered your question, Hussein. Yeah, anytime. Yeah, thank you. Yes. And again, reach out to me anytime, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Hussein. Also, regarding if you need any consultants regarding well-being or cultural, you could also reach MARKO Advance. We provide such kind of services here in Saudi Arabia. So now, Mr. Paul, it's your time if you have any closing message to the attendees, and anyone will watch the record later on.
No, just to say thank you for the invitation, Aymen. I really appreciate it for reaching out to me. Everybody on the call, the webinar today, I hope you enjoyed it. Gave you a bit of an insight into what Saudi Aramco is doing. You know, are we the best out there? Not necessarily, but we have aspirations to be the best. And, you know, we feel we've got a fantastic strategy and model in place now. It's all really down to the implementation. But again, my email is there. So anybody reach out to me, and I can maybe help you and support you as much as I can. But thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this webinar. Thank you, everyone here. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Aymen. And ma salam, everybody, and good night.
Good night.
Shukran. Thank you. Bye-bye.